Greetings, Let Tribe. Janine Palmer here, Spirit Silver Moon, Harmony Energy Healing. I do these videos because some people like them, some people ask for them. And it's just part of the energy healing work that I do for whatever it's worth. I mean, some people might be interested and some might not. So this one has to do with, I suppose, how we question ourselves, which I suppose is good to do to a degree. But not to question ourselves so much because maybe we're not accepting ourselves enough. And my friend Marty sent me something today that said about how we see ourselves in a certain way, and probably most everybody else sees us differently. We don't know how people see us. People view us through many lenses, okay? So some people might view something I'm talking about or anyone else is talking about from a place of, okay, I'm open to learn. This is making sense to me. You know, whether you're sharing a story or you're sharing knowledge and wisdom from studying or whatever it is. So even though I study anything or whatever, I just still always only have a limited perspective of whatever it was that I studied and what it means to me. And some people are interested in things like that, and some people are not. It depends on where everyone can't talk today. Sorry, where everybody is on their journey, at what level of awakening and awareness they are, and what level of healing and processing and releasing. And everyone is at different levels for that. So, you know, one of the biggest things that I learned is about no judgment. It's a big part of my message. It just became something that I was aware of as something that's very important. So I wanted to talk more about how we see ourselves and others, which is always changing. And so sometimes we'll see, so we have friends on social media. Some of them become really good friends. They become teachers. Some of them become people who might act in unacceptable or hurtful ways or whatever. So sometimes we will do a post about something kind of indirectly, addressing a subject or more than one subject, and it might be directed at a person or more than one person, without talking to the person directly, but just putting it out there. And maybe that's just a way of venting, of just getting it out of you because maybe you took exception to something or more than one thing. So when we take exception to anything, usually it's reflecting something that's not healed. Okay, those triggers, the things that bother us, and we all have those to some degree. So some of us might be really, really strong people in a lot of ways at certain times and circumstances when we need to be, and at other times we're not as much because we all have sort of maybe weak spots that need to be strengthened, weakened areas, or wounds, unhealed wounds that we're working on healing, and things trigger those. So when we have certain reactions, so like if we have had stuff come at us, and sometimes we bring it in with us because it's testing us. So like people will do things from a level of misunderstanding, understanding or misunderstanding, but a lot of times it's from misunderstanding and from their wounds and issues as well. So if they are wounded in a way that they're going to be resentful and judgmental, and that's them spewing that out in that way a lot of the time. Okay, so that they're hurtful to you or your friend or someone you know or care about, whatever. But you see people in these behavior patterns that are acting this way, acting out this way, being belligerent, making derogatory comments, putting people down, whether directly or indirectly, because yes, we see things a certain way. Yes, we can see things that other people can't see. And yes, we can be helpful, but usually it's when it's asked for. So we can't help someone to heal unless and until they ask. So we can see something and honestly say, That's wrong. So now, when do we do that? When is it okay? You see someone, being unkind to someone or something, an animal or something, and you can step in and say, hey, bro, stop it. That's wrong. Yeah, it probably is. Now, if you see someone from their limited perspective bashing someone else's, something important to someone else, whether it's a belief system or anything, a viewpoint, whatever, and you want to jump in and tell them that's wrong, we don't know if that's wrong because that might not be wrong for that person. There's some things that are just generally wrong where we protect the well-being of other people, but there's also an emotional and a spiritual and a mental well-being. So when we are bashing other people and putting them down, it is reflecting something in us that needs to be healed, but sometimes we don't see it. Okay, so I have done posts periodically for the few years that I've been on Facebook that says something about something, like something I've noticed, and I do them periodically, and I did one the other day because I see things that are posted, kind of like an indirect thing, and I can see where it might be related to something that recently happened or is happening, like with me, just in this whole thing going on here. And so I think it's good to question ourselves, just to be humble, just to say, oh, is that something that I need to be more aware of or need to work on, or do I need to discuss it with someone or apologize or whatever? But it's maybe not good to be to where you question yourself because you're so beaten down that you feel like you do everything wrong. You know what I mean? And like you're going to be judged. Because some people are judgers and some people, know what it's like to feel like they're being judged all the time. Judgment, persecution, whatever it is. So why is that happening? Why is it triggering us? Okay, so when that happens, and this is really has been starting to open up to me a lot more for myself on my journey, as far as just things I've learned from events past, way past, whatever, and things we carry forward. They're unhealed things. So if somebody says something to me that I know to be inaccurate, untrue, unkind, or unfair, I can choose to cut that out, right? But like sometimes people don't understand why you do what you do, and then they're carrying this resentment. So, and they get offended because they don't understand why. That's why communication's good. So if it's, if it's someone you don't know and you just see them being completely belligerent, you can just hit unfriend. They probably won't even notice. And you don't feel comfortable saying anything, people tend to get hurt and offended because we're human. Okay. But what I'm saying for myself though is like, if something is still feeling bothersome, or I notice it from different people doing different things, and it seems like this, that, or the other thing, it's because it's triggering an unhealed wound or issue, unresolved issue, whatever it is. Maybe a weakness that hasn't been strengthened. So these are the things that show us where the work needs to be done if we're so inclined to do that work for ourselves, to where when we strengthen the weaknesses and we heal the wounds and we let the stuff go and we don't let people use it against us anymore. Because as I said previously, they like to find wounds and weaknesses and poke them. Sometimes, if they're out there judging you and what you do and what you say, and they're not finding anything good in anything, that's their issue. Okay. And then your choice is, do I want to continue to allow it in my space? It doesn't mean that you don't like the person. It doesn't mean that you're disrespecting the person. Okay. But like if I say, I don't think you should wear that color blue sweatshirt because it's obnoxious and offensive, that's probably my issue. And I don't need to be the fashion police. You know what I mean? So, but I might not see that. I just can't stand that color blue. So I'm going to hammer you or whatever. I'm just using a stupid analogy that's probably pretty lame and maybe doesn't apply. But you know what I'm trying to say is where we find fault with something and we might attack it indirectly. And what might that be also? Maybe it's the shit that's been building up in us. Again, the unhealed wounds, the unresolved issues, the resentment that we carry that comes out here and there. We can see it in statements. We can see it in behaviors. Oh, maybe we don't see it in ourselves, but other people can see it in us. So when we blow that shit out, it's because that stuff wants to be released from you. It wants to be released. Your body doesn't want that shit in there. Okay, but you know, are going to see you differently than you see yourself or than you know yourself to date. Okay, and they're going to see you through their lenses of whatever level of healing they are at or are not at. So when we see people just going off the page and using us as a dartboard or a doormat or a freaking target practice for their own shit, and we know it's not about us, we don't have to tolerate it. In fact, we should not tolerate it. If we think enough of ourselves and we want to honor ourselves, we don't have to put up with that shit from people who want to be judgy or superior. And as I said too before in other posts, sometimes we can tell a lot about people by what they don't do, right? Some people are interactive, or they might start out that way and then they don't. They might be supportive of you or not. And you can totally tell where they're at, especially when they're not. I mean, maybe it's fake, but you can tell a lot by what a person doesn't do. Okay, so yeah, body language too. I mean, not in that case, maybe on here, but yeah, it's almost like when you extend your hand to someone to shake their hand and they won't shake it. Some people don't like our vibration. And even though we would be honor them and still be kind to them, we do have to have boundaries for our own energetic protection. Everything is energy. But if you observe the way people behave, maybe they're not ready to allow themselves to be friends with you really, for reasons you don't even know. They're not going to open up to be that true close friend. And that's okay. But similarly, you don't have to let their woundedness into your space. And I guess that's it for this one, is that we see each other through different lenses. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing is sometimes one wounded person who has their friends might see someone else through some lens. Be open to more truth, or they might not like it when they see it, good or bad, but I'm almost talking about good parts of someone. And so if through their woundedness they find fault and judge and talk shit, and then their other friends adopt it, they don't even know, and then they form an opinion and they see the person through that putrid shit-stained lens, right? So they don't see clearly, and then they start their shit. People attack in all kinds of different ways. Okay, so some people take the responsibility to decide for themselves what they feel, and they don't just adopt someone else's interpretation or misinterpretation of something. But people like to get in these little groups. It's like a pack mentality. It's like this cliquey, bitchy, little childish, juvenile, I'm wounded, so let's see who we can hurt group. And that's going on all over the planet too. They're all tests and initiations, and a lot of the time they're not fun. Peace.